Go ahead.
Okay. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes.
That was for sorrow. His heart was broken when
they rent their garments and pour ashes on their
because he didn't want to harm the young man.
The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now? Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornamented robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe." He recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, in mourning will I go down to the grave to my son." So his father wept for him.
So they sold 37-36, and the Midianite, sold him into Egypt.
To Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard.
Right. So he goes down and he goes to work for Potiphar, and Potiphar loves him, and he comes to be over his whole household, and he says, "You're second to me." And he was ruling Potiphar's house because Potiphar saw that with Joseph there, God blessed him, and he enjoyed that blessing. But Potiphar went away on a trip, and while he was gone, his wife made a pass at Joseph, and he got out of there so fast he left his coat. And with the coat, she took the coat and she screamed, and she told the hired help. She said, "This man tried to accost me." I guess she didn't use those words. Anyway, he tried to lay with her, I think would be the term of the Old Testament. And so Potiphar had him thrown in jail. And
it seems like he didn't have much luck with coats, did he?
he didn't. That's a good point. And he was thrown in jail, and it just looked like God had forgotten him there. He was there for 2 years, and so some of the men in jail had dreams, and he interpreted them perfectly, and he said, "Now remember me when you get out to the king," but they didn't until the king had a dream. And the king had this dream about a famine in the land, and plenty, and then a famine, and no one could interpret that dream. And the baker remembered that Joseph had interpreted his dream, so he said, "I remember someone in prison." So the king sent and had Joseph come and reveal his dream to him. Okay, let's read 41 and 17 through 44. This is where Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dream.
Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when out of the river came up 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows came up, scrawny and very ugly and lean. I've never seen such ugly cows in all the land of Egypt. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows that came up first. But even after they ate them, no one could tell that they had done so. They looked just as ugly as before, and then I woke up. In my dreams I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. And after them 7 other heads sprouted, withered and thin, scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. I told this to the magicians, but none could explain it to me." Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up after are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain, scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is just as I said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land." The abundance in the land will not be remembered, because the famine that follows it will be so severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in two forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it.
Go ahead.
Okay. And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh, to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country, to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?"
See, they always recognized that God blessed them where they went. And it's so interesting to notice that going through the scriptures.
Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you." So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and men shouted before him, "Make way!" Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt.
Can I say something?
Do 44. Okay.
Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, but without your word, no one will lift a hand or foot in all Egypt."
So we find that Joseph was second to Pharaoh. And remember, the son is second to the father. He will be seated at his right hand. We're just picking up types as we come through. But Joseph was 30 years old when he was made second to Pharaoh of Egypt, ruling Egypt. And look at all the pomp that Pharaoh chariot and everything was pretty neat. That was, let's see, I'm going to read that one. And Joseph was 30 years old. This is Genesis 41 through 48, 46, chapter 41, verse 46 through 48. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 720th years, the earth brought forth by handsful, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in Egypt, the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field which was round about every city laid he up in the same. Now Joseph was overseer, remember, of the food, so he puts up all the food that's left over of the 720 years, because what they're fixing to have 7 bad years, and they're going to have enough food for all this time. And by this time now the famine had hit Jacob's family. Remember, he had gone back to his father's land. And God always told them not to go down to Egypt, but he winds up having to come down to Egypt to get food. And so the brothers that had sold Joseph into Egypt had to come to Egypt to get food. Read Genesis 42, 5 and 6.
So Israel's sons were among those who went to buy grain, for the famine was in the land of Canaan also. Now Joseph was the governor of all the land, and the one who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them.
See, when they come in to get food, well, Joseph, there's my brothers. Go ahead.
But he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From the land of Canaan," they replied, "to buy food." Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Then he remembered in his dreams about them and said to them, You are spies. You have come to see where our land is unprotected. No, my lord, they answered. Your servants have come to buy food. We are all the sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies. No, he said to them, you have come to see where our land is unprotected. But they replied, your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man, who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more. Joseph said to them, it is just as I told you. You are spies, and this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother. The rest of you will be kept in prison so that your words may be tested to see if you are telling the truth. If you are not, then as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies. And he put them all in custody for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, do this and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison while the rest of you go and take grain back for your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified and that you may not die. This they proceeded to do.
And after Joseph disappeared, Jacob was more protective of Benjamin because he loved Rachel. And these 2 sons were Rachel's sons, and he felt like Benjamin was all he had left. And he said, when they come back to want to take Benjamin back with him, he said, if you take him back, well, I'll die. And I'll go down to my grave with grief. And so this was just really a hard place for, but the famine gets worse, and so he has to send them back. So just read the first verse of 43, verse 1.
Now the famine was still severe in the land, so when they had eaten all the grain they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, go back and buy us a little more food.
But he didn't want them to take Benjamin, but they don't want to go back without it because they know they won't get the food. So read Genesis 43, 7 and 8.
They replied, the man questioned us closely about ourselves and our family. Is your father still living, he asked us. Do you have another brother? We simply answered his questions. How were we to know if he would say, bring your brother down there? When Judah said to Israel his father, send the boy along with me, and we will go at once, so that we and you and our children may live and not die. I myself will guarantee his safety. You can hold me personally responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him here before you, I will bear the blame before you all my life.
So, read 44, 30, 34.
How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come upon my father.
Wait, that was further over than I meant, but that's okay.
No.
When they get back to Joseph, well, Joseph's not going to let him bring the brother back, so one of the brothers offers to stay in his stead. And anyway, they wind up, he reveals himself to them. And then we have to send and get the father. Read 45, Genesis 45, verse 1.
Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, have everyone leave my presence. So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? But his brothers were not able to answer him because
they were scared
they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they had done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will not be plowing and reaping. So God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on this earth, and to save your lives by great deliverance.
You see, Jesus said he came to seek and to save the lost. God sent Jesus to save.
Well, there's 12 brothers, 12 disciples.
Mm-hmm.
And too, God sent Joseph ahead to take care of things to make sure his people would survive.
True. Time of
They wouldn't die out.
to keep the promise of the covenant, to preserve the covenant. He had to preserve Jacob's family alive.
We might not always know what God has in store for us, but we know He has a plan.
Okay, 45:26. He tells them to read that one. Lee tells them to go tell.
They tell him Joseph is still alive. In fact, he is ruler of all Egypt.
Tell his father.
Jacob was stunned. He did not believe them. But when they told him everything Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts Joseph had sent to carry him back, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. And Israel said, I'm convinced. My son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die.
And in 46 verse 1, Jacob goes to Egypt. Read that one.
Okay, so Israel set out with all that was his, and when he reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac.
So they go and settle down in Egypt. And we're going to skip over to Genesis 50 verse 20.
You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them.
See, so it was in God's plan, as Carla said a while ago, to use Joseph at this time to preserve these people alive. So he said, you thought this for evil, but God did it for good because he could foresee this need. And we're going to read the whole chapter of Genesis 49 to just see that this is where Jacob tells each one of his sons what their future will be. So we're just going to read that chapter, and I'm just going to read it so I can comment as I come home. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Now, the last days is going to be our prophecy. That things to come, okay? And we find that God honors prophecy because he says in Revelation verse 1 and 3 that Jesus Christ is the spirit of prophecy. You may want to put that verse down. I said that he said verse 3, but I don't think it is verse 3. Anyway, I'll be reading what you're looking. Gather yourselves together and hear ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. Reuben, thou art my firstborn. Now, Reuben would have been what? The firstborn, so he would have been the one to receive the promise, right? The inheritance. But he doesn't get it again. We find this so often. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellence of dignity and excellency of power. Unstable as water. And we have a verse in James that says, let not a double-minded man think that he'll receive anything at the hand of God. Carla, look that verse up.
The other one's Revelation 19:10.
Okay. Revelation 19:10 says that Jesus Christ is the spirit of prophecy, so don't ever let anybody deter you from knowing prophecy. God gave it to us. 2/3 of the Bible cover that, and it's the most exciting part. It's just wonderful to us. Except, like how Lindsay said tonight, except for salvation. That's our first. Unstable as water. Did you find that verse in James?
Double-minded man.
Double-minded man. It's in James.
Okay. James 1:8.
James 1:8 says, let not a double-minded man think.
This is a double-minded man who's unstable in all his ways.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think it'll finish.
Previous verse?
James 1:8. You might turn in your scriptures there and see, but anyway, unstable means double-minded. Unstable as water, and thou shalt not excel. And since he was a man of excellence, He was an excellent person, did things excellently, but here he says, you will not excel, because thou wentest up to my father's bed, and defiledst thou it. He went up to my couch. He slept with his father's concubine. And this he should not have done. Simeon and Levi are brethren, instruments of cruelty. They had, the daughter had gone out into the land to see what the people were like in the place they were, and she got raped. And so the brothers went over and told these boys that if you'll be circumcised, as we are, why, we'll let you marry her. So when the boys were all circumcised of this other kingdom, Simeon and Levi had the brothers all come in and kill these men.
Because they're in great pain, they couldn't defend themselves.
They couldn't defend themselves, and so this is what Jacob is referring to. You're cruel, and you didn't keep your word to these people. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly, mine honor, be not thou united, for it is in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they digged down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. See, they killed all those men. And I will divide them in Jacob, and scatter them in Israel. And Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Now this is the prophecy of the coming of Messiah through Judah. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp, from the lion of the tribe of Judah. Christ came. Judah is a lion's whelp from the prey. My son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, as an old lion, who shall rouse him up. The scepter, this Christ, shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloah. Now Shiloah is Christ come, and unto him shall be the gathering of his people. Now that verse is Genesis 49, verse 10. Binding his fowl unto the vine, his ass colt unto the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. Now Christ is going to stamp out in Revelation the blood as it were grapes of wrath. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships. And his border shall be unto Zidon. Zidon. Issachar is as strong as an ass couching down between two burdens, and he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulders to bear, and become a servant unto tribute. Dan, now this is very controversial verse, shall judge his people as one of the rulers tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent. What is a serpent a type of? Satan. Always Satan. And so many theologians think that the Antichrist will come out of the tribe of Dan. Christ will come out of the tribe of Judah because of this verse. But there are those that say this doesn't mean anything, but you can take it the way you want to. It says, Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse's heel, so that his rider shall fall backward. What does Satan do as he tempts people? He tries to make them fall backward. And I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. Naphtali is a hind let loose, he giveth goodly word. Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches run over the wall. And see, he kept that whole nation alive with his wisdom and the dream that God gave to him. So he fulfilled his scripture. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him. His brothers put him in a pit, and sold him into Egypt. But his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Even by the God of thy fathers, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who shall bless thee, with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the beast and of the womb. The blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors, unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hill. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. See, he was separated from them, and cast in that pit, and sold into Egypt. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. And these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is that their father spake unto them, and blessed them, every one according to his blessing he blessed them. And he charged them, and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephraim the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephraim the Hittite, for a possession of a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. The purchase of the field and the cave that is therein was from the children of Heth. And when Jacob had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet unto his bed, and yielded up the ghost, and was gathered unto his people. Put the pause button. Genesis 50:24. Joseph said unto his brethren, I die, and God will surely visit you, and bring you out of this land into the land which he sware to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Now see, he was still well aware of God's promise. The covenant. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones from hence. Okay, 400, they go down to Egypt and they stay there 400 years. And so, he is saying to them, this is prophecy, what he's saying to them. He's saying, you are going to be in bondage down here 400 years, but God is going to deliver you. And when you are delivered, you take my bones with you. And they do this. We'll find this out in the next lesson, that they do take his bones with them when they leave Egypt. See, and they're going to wind up in grave bondage in Egypt. They're just little by little, like the American people are becoming in bondage to sin, but they're going to wind up in bondage to Pharaoh, and God is going to have to deliver them. I just wanted to point out that in Genesis chapter 25, starting with verse 1, that Abraham took another wife, and he had 6 sons by this other wife, who I believe we have a reference in Samuel, 1 Samuel, that tells us she was a concubine. He had 6 sons by her, but he blessed them, he loved them, and he blessed them and sent them away because they were not to have inheritance with Ishmael. With Isaac, I mean. That's it, Carl.
That's it?
Yeah.